things worked. And I can remember, and this is going back to exactly, what we just discussed about communication. I can remember coming back after 2 or 3 days, and at the same time, I had a large family. I would cook and I would fix things, but this other world was right there. I could function, but I was almost totally in this other world. And I remember when I realized I was fully back, and I could shut that out, however you want to say that, I tried to share it with a lot of people. I was so excited, I understood how this universe clicked. And it was so simple, it was so easy, I wanted to share it. And number one, the words were not there to be able to translate what I'd seen and how it worked. And as I shared it with friends, and I had a lot of friends who dearly loved me, knew I was kind of eccentric, but loved me anyway, very tolerant. And in Britain, that's a very nice advantage because they love eccentric people. They're much more accepted there than some, I have to say, here. But as I tried to share, it became very, very frustrating because people would say, "We love you, but can you just..." Yeah, because we don't get it. We don't understand what you're saying.
Well, Russell's family thought he should be committed.
Yeah, I mean, it scared me because, I realized I was way, way out there, and it was, scaring people. Yeah. And so I finally started, easing in and kept it to myself. But I do recall about a year later, and I was still getting input. I was still getting confirmations and added, material, and I remember saying very clearly to the whole heavens that I don't want to hear anymore. I don't want to hear another thing unless you send me one person that I can talk to that will at least understand. Where the communication will be there, the words will be there, whatever's needed will be there. And that very night, I met one person. It wasn't a big communication, but it was enough that I knew that there was some way to communicate part of it. But now I'm meeting a lot of people that do get it. You don't have to have a lot of words because somehow the patterns just start gelling. And you can see the heads nod and, the understanding comes about. But I was lucky enough to run into someone in Tucson, Arizona, who also felt that geometric form had some effect on things. And we started experimenting with a cone, and just the pure shape and form of that cone allowed one cone put in a swimming pool with one small bottle of aldehyde inhibitor. And if you've ever lived in hot country like here, we're in Las Vegas, Nevada today, pools can be a real problem to maintain crystal clear water, to maintain, a good healthy pool. In Tucson, it's one of the hardest places in the country because of the winds and monsoons and the other problems you deal with as well as, keeping the water clear. With one small bottle of aldehyde inhibitor and two of these units placed in a pool, for 2.5 years, no chlorine, no acid was needed in that pool, and it was perfectly clear, crystal clear water. 5 other pools were also used as experimental sites, and
during the
all
same
of them
time,
during the same.
they're all part of the test group.
Well, we started the other 5 about a year after starting the first one, which continued with no chlorine and acid. Some of the others wanted to have a small amount in so that the chlorine registered a certain amount in the pool because they had a lot of kids or whatever going in and they were afraid. The amount of chlorine, though, needed to maintain that level was so minimal compared to what they've been spending and using when these were put in place. One of the things that occurs when you use this geometric form is that literally the atomic structure that's underneath, within its range, will maintain its form, and it will expand the life of it. I took it one step further because I designed an engine. I'm getting really tired and I'm having a hard time thinking. It's a piece of equipment that's placed over a car engine that uses geometric form and shape, and it reduces gas usage by 10 to 20% just by its shape and form. It's not that anything goes through, changes anything, it's just shape and form is what changes it. Universities did experiments, did the tests rather with the water and the experimental pools. We actually changed the structure in the water.
Mhm.
One of the other interesting things is when you have water in hot areas in pools, the water evaporates. You add a little more water to the pool, the water evaporates. Add a little more water. Every time you do this, if you've done any basic, experiments, you can have a little bowl sitting out for cats and dogs, and you keep doing that. Gradually, you'll get a film, and the hardness of the water increases and increases until finally you got to just scratch it. Pools that had very severe problems with hard water buildup were reversed. The water became softer and softer and softer instead of getting harder and harder. The reason we found was that some of the molecules bonded together in a very different way under these cones and were able to be filtered out. They increased in size and were able to be filtered out. So this has just taken us back to what we've all been saying at the beginning here, that we've got a real exciting universe. We've got some real exciting principles that we can put into effect. None of the two, the car nor the water equipment used any energy other than free energy. We're not looking at plugging it into electrical things. We're not looking at, filling up a little gas tank. Totally free energy. Once you have the unit in place, there's nothing else to add. So, I don't know if everybody wants to take a little break.
Yeah, I would. We heard from Troy before we
Let's take a break first.
But I commented, John, when I was talking about that, it's like, oh, I have no problem. You've studied this stuff. You have a knowledge of it. And that is the terminology that is incorporated in explaining these things.
But I need to explain something, too, is that I studied all this. I studied the fundamental scientific physics things after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
After I already understood a lot of the basic universal principles.
Right.
And the only reason I did that was so that I could talk to people who only understood from a physics standpoint what they knew, so that maybe I could communicate.
And I guess what I'm trying to say is, I see a great need, no matter how hard it is, to put it in terms that she can understand and I can understand, because we're the most important ones to understand it. Not the fields of physics and the fields of whatever sciences that are in the university right now, unless they really are trying to learn these things. I don't know how to say it. It's just, that's one thing. If we, better off, let's not even use words. Let's use the geometric shape and form. How do we show that? That's what we should be focusing on. I mean, that is ultimately what you focus on.
After we take a break, when we come back,
Ralph's going to bring out the ship.
We're going to start with Troy, and then we're going to...
Yeah.
We're going to start with Troy, or can we end with Troy?
And
I'd like to end with Troy, and then
end with Troy now.
End with Troy now.
It might last a
Come on,
while.
Troy.
It's okay.
Well, if we want to take a break first, then we
No,
can
go
just keep
ahead.
going.
Go ahead.
Okay, my name is Troy Wentz. I don't know how I got into this, but ever since I was about in 6th grade, or when I was about 12 years old, I wanted to run for president, and I wanted to change the world. And my grandpa's, as far as my religious background, my grandpa was a big influence on me, and the thing that I always enjoyed most in life is helping other people. So, I don't know, it's just that's the way my life's gone through as far as the things that have happened to me, and a lot of things happened. And anyway, so last year I ran for president, and nobody probably knows about this except for Steve and John and Ty, but anyway.
President of what?
United States.
Is that right?
Yeah. So I built a arm and leg powered recumbent tricycle, a one of a kind in the world, and took that, got out to LA about the time of the riots, 2 days after the riots, or 3 days after the riots, and rode right up through Western Avenue and Florence Avenue.
What kind of a cycle? Excuse me.
A human powered, a tricycle.
Tricycle.
Yeah, it's arm and leg powered. So the back wheels are driven by the arms, and the front wheel is driven by the legs, and you steer it by leaving the front wheel. So you don't steer it, there's no handlebars. So it was a unique conversation piece, which helped a lot. So that always got me started in conversations with people on the trip. Anyway, I went to Los Angeles, and I ended up spending a lot more time out there than I thought I would, because they got a lot of problems out there. And I don't fear anything. And I mean, the neighborhoods I went through, I mean, I should have been shot and killed about 50 times, had my tricycle and everything stolen about 50 times, according to all the people out there. And, but, you know, it didn't bother me. I knew that I was supposed to do it. I guess I should backtrack a little bit too, but, as a programmer analyst for a while, and then, after that, and then when my grandpa died, then I started to change jobs, and as a programmer analyst in Iowa for a while, and then I thought, well, I needed to make a lot of money to be able to change the world. And then a neighbor kid of mine was getting in trouble, but I was having to spend all this overtime hours and stuff at my job to make all this money. And then when he died in a car accident, because he's running around with the wrong crowd, and if I would have just spent more time with him, I thought, you know, he wouldn't have got in that situation. I decided, well, having to make a lot of money isn't the way to do it. So quit my really good paying programmer analyst job, went back to school, learned a little bit more about engineering, because that was the thing I've always loved to do, is build things, and I've always learned from nature. I mean, I've always grew up on a farm and was poor all my life, and so I always played around with nature because it's cheap. And but after that, went back and drove my parents crazy after quitting a good job, and took manufacturing engineering, and then worked for about a year till I saved up enough money to move back down by my hometown, and got 10 acres, a trailer house and 10 acres, and this is because I just felt that it's time to run for president. This was in April of '91. I quit my job, then moved back down. Or was that 90? Anyway, moved back down to Sterling, Nebraska, and decided it was time to do it. So I just needed to get caught up with a lot more things to be able to show people I did know what I was talking about, or at least have an idea of some things I was talking about. But I needed the time instead of having the money and stuff. So I quit my job and moved back down there, and it just happened to be that I got a place where it was a place where a trailer house that the people that lived there, they died in a car accident in my senior year. So, and that has always been a sort of a moving point, and I realized that death is just a part of life, and I don't fear death at all. And so I moved back down there, and the thing that I've always felt, and is even our senior year motto, is like, you're never given a wish without the power to make it come true. And so I think I can accomplish anything, just set my mind to it. So everything has been going really great ever since I quit my job, and so I thought, well, you know, I won't be 35 until whatever year. I was only 29 at the time, and I thought, okay, still got to wait about 6 years before I can even try to do this. But I was only getting like 2 hours of sleep at night, and realizing that all the problems around the world were just getting too big, and so I decided, well, it's time to do it now. It's like God isn't going to let me get any sleep, or else, and as soon as I told somebody that I was going to run for president, my mind felt a lot more at ease, and so I felt a lot better about it. And then I knew one sign that I went to church one day, and our pastor's a little different compared to regular pastors. Doesn't preach out of the Bible and stuff. He always has really good stories to go with it. But anyway, we had a baptism again. I mean, something unusual for a Methodist church. And he was going to get baptisms, and he's talking about how John baptized Christ. And so, I mean, this is something new. And then he just said that we're going to have baptism. So I went to church, you know, and he said, okay, we're going to do this. Well, nobody got up, so I got up, you know, and went up there, and he baptized me again. And when I sat down, I mean, I had a feeling come over me that was just like unbelievable. And so I just felt like, you know, Christ is trying to tell me something, or God's trying to tell me something, that this is the time to do it. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but before that, when I went back to college, I was in a car accident and always wore my seatbelts, but on the way back to my house, I didn't wear my seatbelt, and the guy smashed into me, and anyway, I ended up getting the money from that car accident to pay for my trip to run for president, so sort of blessing in disguise. Anyway, but everything's just been going really great for me, and so I got this tricycle design, you know, and I thought, yeah, I don't know enough people, how am I going to do this, you know, and so the day before I was going to leave for LA, went down, and my mom just happened to show Steve and John in Acreage, and somehow they got talking about recycling. And so I thought, well, I'll go see Steve and John and see if I can get more information about recycling before I go out on my campaign trip. So I go down there and start talking with them. It's just like, boy, somebody like me. And we just got talking about everything. Even the guy that, the OPPD guy, the electric company guy, came by that day at Steve and John's when they was trying to build a house. And Steve's telling them what they want to do. And the guy goes, oh, you sound like this other guy over by Sterling, you know, he's been over to my place. And so we hit it off real well. And then I found out that John wrote a World Peace Charter and that John has connections worldwide. And I thought, this is working out really good. So I canceled my flight and canceled my hotel and wrote a book. And it was called Creating the Breakfast Club, based upon the Breakfast Club movie. And it gets back, and I was probably the only presidential candidate that wanted to eliminate the money system, and also like on the Breakfast Clubs, like what you were talking about, Ralph, to where everybody has their own niche in life, you know. It's just like an engineer, like in the movie, the kid that's the really brain couldn't design an elephant lamp because he didn't know how to build it, but the kid that knew the shop and could build things, you know, put them together, they can do the things. So that's what the movie is based on, and that came about by a weird way too, because I was always going down to my grandpa's on Sundays, and we'd always watch Face the Nation and stuff, and I was having a real time writing this book, and the Breakfast Club came on. I mean, we didn't have it on Face the Nation that morning, and so I thought, yeah, that's it, and that clicked, and so the books just started flowing then. And I mean, before that I was trying to figure out how to make the insurance work out, you know, a tax system and everything, and the money system just, it didn't work. So my whole book is based on no money. And so I wrote the book, and then John hooked me up with the essay out in California. She said she's going to publish it, and so I thought, boy, these things are really going to be good, and she's going to set me up with a meeting with the pro people out in Van Nuys, and so I thought, things are rolling. So I got to California, you know, met with the pro people out in Van Nuys, and the head guy there thought, really liked my book and stuff, but then essay couldn't publish it, so I thought, oh well, it's not meant to be published, and so I went on my trip anyway, and went from California, and then had an unbelievable trip. I mean, the people that I met and the things that happened is like, okay, who's God going to have me meet next, and what's going to happen next? And I mean, even though I was bicycling up the Rocky Mountains and stuff, and
He rode his bike all this way.
And
He didn't ride in a car. He rode his bike.
You rode the bike all the way?
yeah,
All the way.
Went from California over to North Carolina, and then back up to Nebraska. And
Met a lot of people.
I met a
A lot
lot
of
of people.
experience.
Right.
I mean, he learned how to do Reiki in Georgia, and then the next day he was raking a horse.
The horse,
Okay.
and then I Reiki the lady that her heel got stepped on by a horse, and so I said, well, let me just Reiki your heel, you know, and she's
What is Reiki?
Reiki
Healing.
Energy.
Doing
It's an energy.
Oh.
Like a laying on of hands.
Oh, yeah?
Sweeping, moving the auric field and stuff like that.
You know, speaking of that Reiki, I got bursitis in my arm, and it got real bad, and I had to have some cortisone put in it, and a guy from one of the churches came in, and we got to, in the shop there, and we got to talking about it, and he asked me if he could do the laying of the hands on me, and I said yes. I mean, I was in pain, and I said, yes. And he did. And the pain went away. Craziest thing that I've ever seen.
It worked.
Yeah.
It worked.
And this lady, I mean, she's sitting there, her heel was bleeding, and she's trying to drink as many beers as she could to make the pain go away. So I said, just let me try this once, and so she did, and just put I couldn't touch her heel because it's so sore. She said, you can't touch it, so, you know, you can just put it about 1.5 inches away. So I just put it around her heel, and she says, it's getting cold. It's getting hot, it's getting cold, it's getting hot, just like putting heat and ice on. And then the throbbing went away, and the bleeding stopped, and she could get up and walk on it. She couldn't walk on it before. So she was pretty amazed, and then I was pretty happy about it too. So, well, this stuff really works. So, I mean, when I was down with Ty, and Ty took me to Cynthia Rose, young slosher, that is a master of it, and that I sort of got indoctrinated into it and stuff. I mean, that lady is an amazing lady too. About like John. I mean, I think those two should get together once in a while. But anyway, that happened. I met a guy that built an exact replica of Stonehenge in Louisiana, and he was telling me how he knows that there's other beings and other life forms, and how he built this and how they came, and they said how they were so glad that he built a place for them to dance. And I mean, we started talking about that, talked Atlantis, everything, and right before that, in another place in Louisiana, a guy was giving out pyramid razor blade sharpeners. I get into all kinds of things, and even when I had a breakdown once in New Mexico, I mean, I was in a dinky little town. All there was a gas station to get it fixed, and so started talking with the couple that ran it, and she was telling me how her mom used pyramids to dry fruit, and you know how everybody thought she was crazy. So I sort of explained it to her because John had told me about it. And then I met a lady that was a psychic, and met with some organization in Hawaii that was getting with Perot. And I also met a guy that ran for president in '72 under the independence. So I mean, even when I had a breakdown, things went great. So that's the way my whole trip went. And the people I met was just amazing. I mean, when I was out in LA, I mean, stayed with people from Burma and met people from Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, Ireland, Africa, every place. And then my trip all the way along is just amazing, and got in with the news media, and so it's just like, I was just going to go with the flow, you know, and just what happened, and it was just an amazing trip. And so, after I got done with that, then came back and handed out, I made copies of the book all the way along the way. I mean, I don't know how many I made out business cards, and had business cards with mine and John's name on it, and so it's just like when I was in Cabazon, California. It's about like going back in the 60s. I mean, there's a bunch of people, I mean, wearing beads and everything, you know, the hippie era, and it's like one guy goes, seen that I was running for president, and, you know, but then I gave him the card, and you see John's World Peace Charter on there, you know, and goes, oh, you know, like, good luck to you, you know, but I mean, the people I met was just amazing, and it was just a fantastic trip. So now I'm writing another book about the trip, and it's going to be called The Law of One, and so that should be out hopefully by the end of March, and we'll see what happens with that. But I mean, I always just wanted to change the world, and things have just been happening to connect me with the people that think we can do it, and I just think that we can do it. I mean, I always talk about Christ coming back and the world being destroyed, you know, but I always felt that if we could change it, I mean, it would be changed, and that Christ is in all of us, and that everybody is born good. It's just that greed and power change people and the environment people live in, make them bad. And but I know from the people I talk to along the way, they're ready for a change, and you can see that with the people that followed Perot this year even. So I just get the book out and then just keep going from there, and that's all I do, is keep going from that. But I mean, the zero gravity and craft is something I really want to get into. I mean, even been having dreams of taking one of these up to the news station up in Omaha and flying up there. And like when we was talking about this navigational system, I just had a dream that I took one of the newscast people, Carol Schrader, out, and we went from Omaha to Lincoln, you know, in like 1 second, you know. And so I thought, And then you start talking about this going that distance, you know, and 65 miles in a couple of seconds. I thought, yeah, things are starting to grow. And we was talking about, he's telling John that, you know, he's talking about pyramids, but I kept seeing, you know, as far as a tetrahedron all the time, you know, and then she gets this tape from Hoagland that's based on tetrahedrons, and so I don't know, things are just coming together, and I'll just go from there. I don't know what my job is, because everybody else here has got such great knowledge in areas, and I'm just sort of a simple person.
Did you see the Hoagland film that when Hoagland made his presentation to the UN?
That's the one he said.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Troy also wants to incorporate the zero gravity things in farm implements, like when they, you know, when the fields are real muddy and wet, you know, they have to go out there and harvest. It'd be nice if they could just have a harvester that kind of levitates over. You could double plant your rows too. You know, you have your corn, and then you have your other crop in between the corn rows. And when you don't have wheels on the ground, you just hover across it.
But I also like, I always had the thing as far as what you talked about, as far as self-contained, where people could go wherever they wanted to and have it there. And
I wonder how
Look
much
up
of
into
a
the
common
online.
dream that is, because that was mine from childhood. And no barriers,
Why is
no
it a common dream?
planetary
See,
barriers.
we're already there. We've already got these spaceships, and we're in them all the time.
Yeah.
We're using them all the time. We're kind of in denial
Yeah.
because we have lessons or karma or whatever you call it
To
to
clean.
balance out. To oh heck, we're already there. Yes, I remember. In other words, we keep. It's like death experience. We're dying every day. Every 7 days, our skin dies. Every 7, what is it? Cells replace themselves every 7 days or something. Death is an illusion in a sense. I mean, we perceive of it. You know, oh, my friend died, my wife, my husband, or whatever. But those are experiences. I mean, experiences of the idea, but not necessarily the reality. See, that's where the brain short circuits. Its reality has to be
Linear.
three-dimensional or whatever,
Linear, yeah.
and so it short circuits. But it seems that we've got to get to a point to get the lion and the lamb to lay down. In other words, the brain and the mind have to come to terms where, fine, that's your reality, and we'll set you down here and have everything you want to be comfortable with, and I'm going over here and do what makes me comfortable.
I think a lot of the movies coming out now are helping that, are helping people to open to the possibilities.
And I think it's just, well, to use a term, there is a divine plan in all this. I don't, you know, and it's just unfolding. It is unfolding. That's all there is to it.
Well,
You know?
the idea of death, see, the idea of death, this has become very important to me to try and explain. It's very difficult, but it's like I'm prompted to ask the question of people: have you ever experienced death? See, in other words, have them go into their selves, and the answer will always be no.
I have.
Well,
No, but the general people you're talking
well,
about. Most of them don't.
okay.
Are you talking about people anyways? Anybody?
Well, in other words, now
You mean death as we define it is the end? You mean the lights go out? I never experienced that. I never have, and I never
all right.
will.
Let's use the word finale. Have you ever experienced finale? If you had, you wouldn't be here.
Right.
There is no finale.
It's
We're
the in-breath,
talking about
out-breath.
a
I know.
transfer where we...
It's Walter Russell stuff. It's, you know, it...
No, I didn't transfer. I was pronounced dead,
Right.
but my mother and dad, I was carbon monoxide, and they were working on me, and when I came back to, I remember them, one working on each arm and one giving me breathing in my mouth.
Do you remember anything about where you went?
Yeah, where were you at? Where was you at when you first noticed them? You were right there?
Yeah, I was right there. Yeah, I was right there. But I was definitely supposedly gone.
Well, what I'm trying to get at, it's very, it's subtle, because we all know it, but yet our brain doesn't want to fully listen to it, I guess. But it's like when you've completed a pattern or an experience, then that life terminates. And it happens every day to all of us. We are living and dying every day, in a sense.
We go to sleep at night.
Yeah, that's all right there. That's a
Night,
good example.
zero, that's a 0
Yeah.
point. I mean,
0 point.
we have to have that 0 point so that we can have the other point. And then we have to have the other point so we can have that point. It's just it's a circle. It's continuous. But it's not a this way, it's a this way, isn't it?
Yeah, and the point I mean, the benefits of realizing that we're totally unlimited will take this veil of protective stuff we put around us, like police forces and governments and SWAT teams and everything, and immediately render them useless. I mean, like all that billions of dollars we're spending on fear will dissolve. Like, go ahead and shoot, and let them shoot, in a sense. I mean,
You can only put so many holes in the physical body.
You can't kill a spirit. You said that earlier. You know, no, it's because
You can make him think
that
he's been killed.
experience. Yeah, but that experience in itself, and like I used to use an analogy of. I was studying the Gestalt method at one time with a guy, and he knew Gestalt, and he was explaining. I was just wow, I couldn't believe what I was learning from this guy. But he was talking about balance and the yin and the yang, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't even know what the Gestalt is to explain it to you, but it's a method of psychology, something that keep pounding away at something until you get it. But the analogy I use is we were driving from Newport Beach to San Diego on kind of a high trip, just to take a ride and talk. And we were just focused on San Diego, and we'll turn around and come back. So we were in hot pursuit of this conversation. And we were on the freeway, and all of a sudden, I don't remember what happened. It was we either changed lanes or a car came in our lane. I don't know. We had a near head-on that tipped our car and started it rolling like 6 or 7 times. I mean, it was, and I went into slow motion. When this was happening, I said, wow, this is something else, because I was in this Gestalt state of mind, you know. And I said, well, there's the steering wheel. Move your arm this way. Okay, there goes that. Well, you got to go this way to get that pressure point. In other words, there was pressure coming at me from the rollover. But if I turned this way, I could use that pressure to get into the next position for the roll. It was geometrics in motion, you know. But while this was happening, I was going through all this in slow motion, and then the car came to rest upside down. And I said, wow, that was really neat. You know? and then I came out of it, in a sense, and we were back driving down the road to San Diego. But that was a real experience.
It didn't really happen? Yeah. Oh, it did.
I swear to God, it happened. Oh. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind it happened.
But the car...
The reality, the sensors, like what we perceive. I perceived that.
But there was...
Did the car, I mean, did you really have, was there a real physical accident?
Was there really a wreck in the car?
Yeah, yes.
So the car was after it rolled,
but for the...
No, wait a second, after the car rolled and everything, was it capable of driving it?
No.
Okay.
It was totally demolished.
Okay,
it was
you got
upside
another
down.
car
There was
and then
gasoline. I could smell the gasoline. And the water, it was for I don't know how many seconds or maybe minutes, I don't know, but I was in the suspended state of observing this, like, geez, Christ, we can't live through this. There's no way. And you know, because it was just crushed down to there was no way to get out of the car. It was crushed.
Okay, wait a second.
A dual reality.
Is that what you're saying? You had
occurring.
So, and then when this is done, you're still in the same car going down the road. Or
Yeah.
did it actually
And
wreck
then
the car?
It was like, and not a voice, don't get me wrong, but it was like an impression came to me, like, now remember this.
Good.
And then I was back on the road driving along, and I said, wow, did you? And I was talking to this guy, and he says, yeah, I went through the same experience you just did. It was the damnedest thing, and then I knew that there was a lot more to this whole thing than ever meets the eye. I mean,
But the actual wreck did not happen.
In third dimension.
In
They
real-
went through two
wait a
realities
minute,
at
wait a
the same
minute.
time.
It did happen,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
Okay, it
see,
did
that's
happen
the
to you, but was the car actually
The
crushed?
car was totally crushed. I couldn't get out of the car.
Well, how could you get back on the road then and,
Because they were going through two realities at the same time,
Yeah.
and they chose
Like
to
a
maintain.
Oh,
They chose to
like a dream.
maintain the one where they were straight on the road. They could have maintained the one where they were sort of mangled up
Right,
in the
okay.
car.
But see, somebody, somewhere, because I was seeking knowledge, gave me this wonderful opportunity to experience something that was awesome. I mean, I still remember it like it happened yesterday to me, and yet part of my brain says, oh yeah? I mean, but
You know, I believe that there are shift points on the planet, and you know, as I've driven around LA especially, and when you're doing a lot of straight driving, I would arrive at I call it a manifestation point, okay? You reach that point as you drive through it, whatever you visualize at that point manifests. It's just that when I was a child, I had very strong control over as I thought, so it was. You know, if you needed this, it arrived. You know, it was just a very conscious knowingness of how I was maneuvering my reality. Now, these spots that I found a few in the LA area, and I knew that don't mangle your thoughts as you're going through these little spots, because as you go through and you visualize, and it was always on a positive note, you don't visualize a negative thing, but visualize a positive thing, and it would manifest. And it kind of makes me think about, too, you know, whether there isn't a dual reality vortex there, because if you think of what happens with tornadoes, and we were talking about this recently, that I think you were the one that put it into the chapter in the book on how does this happen. You wind up after a tornado's gone through and you find what you may want to tell the story.
Well, a blade of grass or
Could
a
be
stick, a
right
wood stick
through.
be embedded in a tree.
The very action of a vortex produces
Right.
a time-space distortion in our 3D reality.
Right.
And when, say, a tornado comes within the proximity of anything, it distorts its 3D reality, and time and space no longer apply, or the physics as we know it of time and space don't apply to that object. For a moment in time, it's able to be molded or shaped, or able to be transported, or able to be interacted with in a way that is not the normal workings of...
It's
An
almost
example,
as if
Ruthie, here's the example, just so you know what we're talking about. And I'm not saying it because you don't, but I don't know if Ty's read this
It
part.
has to do with force
Okay,
fields, too.
there's been things that happen, and he has an example in his book of a tire, like an old tire is laying out on the farm, right? It's laying over there. Tornado comes through. Next thing you know, this tornado's passed. That tire is wrapped around. I mean, the
Right.
tree is like this. The tire's around the tree, and there's space around it.
But the top
And
of
the
the
tire,
tree is
yeah, the tire, no way the tire came down the
Yeah.
tree.
right.
Yeah.
In another example, they've had things where a stick would be embedded right, a piece of straw
I've seen straw
embedded through
telephone
a telephone pole.
Or a stick through a steel beam.
Okay, and what scientists said,
Glass
how did that
through
do
steel
that?
beam.
How did that thing
Yeah.
get driven in there like that? Or how did that tire get stretched down over that?
It wasn't
It did
driven.
get stretched, it
It
wasn't
wasn't
driven.
stretched.
There's two different time spaces.
Yeah.
and what happens, they get caught up in each other, and then when they straighten out again, that tire was
It's a
sitting
mix-
in the
it's a
place
mix
where that
of the
tree
two
was, and they
realities
kind
there.
of just came into being again.
Yeah, came in together.
And
Yeah.
see, those are the things that Ralph has been studying. That's the things. That's what we're all talking about. These are natural things that happen all the time, and we're just trying to use those principles, understand them, and use them so we have better energy systems, so people can live better. You know, and yes, it's gonna.
I'll share two short stories, and one of them kind of applies, and the other one you can make of it what you will. But when I was, I was about 15 years old, I was sitting one Saturday in the living room in a house in Wisconsin watching TV, and there was family behind me, and I was sitting on a sofa, and I was by myself, just watching TV. And all of a sudden I had a funny feeling in the pit of my stomach. And I'm sure it had to do with the chakras being activated or speeding up or something, because they were sensing something. And my whole reality in front of me just disappeared. No pops, no bangs. It just faded and immediately was replaced by a scene that was outside somewhere. And I was no longer sitting on the sofa, I was standing, and there was a truck, a red truck on this country dirt road taking off away from me, and I knew that there were my friends in this truck. But I couldn't name them today, but I just knew them. And there was green grass around and everything, and the truck started to take off, and I thought, oh wait, they left without me. And as it was driving away, I was running toward it, and my strides became greater and greater until I was in the air following the truck. And when I got over the truck, I was slowly circling the truck like this and going up into the sky. And all of this happened as if it was perfectly normal.
Natural.
And then the next thing I knew, I felt some pressure on my backside, and then the scene changed again, and I found myself sitting in front of the TV, and then I could hear the family members talking and everything, and I got up, and I looked at them, and I said, did I go anywhere? And they looked at me like I was, they said, well, did you fall asleep? I said, no, I was watching TV. Oh, well, it must have been something you were watching on TV. I said, no, I went somewhere, and I couldn't explain it at the time. But I did go somewhere. My consciousness, and not only that, I was feeling it. I was interacting with the scene. But I can't explain it. And now that's that story. And I'm just showing you, I've had a few things happen in my life that, including beings about this side that look like elves and everything else. But, well, if you want to hear that. But I was in Sedona, had been in Sedona for 2 years, and I was with a gal in her Corvette. And we had just passed Bell Rock, and we were going into the village of Oak Creek. And it was it's a nice, easy grade down. And I could see the village of Oak Creek, and this is about 9 o'clock at night, and there's another car, no other cars except for this other car with its headlights coming up the same way, only going in the opposite direction. And we were both doing about 40, 45. And we weren't saying anything, this gal and I. We were tired, and suddenly we both noticed that the other car had crossed the line and wasn't going back. And we're waiting it out, and at the last minute, the last thing I saw was its left headlight was way over the center point of the hood of the Corvette and about 2 feet away from impact. And I thought, there's no way we're going to get out of this. We've got a head-on collision. And she thought so too. There was nowhere to go off the road except down
I know exactly what you mean.
into rocks and cliffs, and, you know. And the next thing we knew, we felt what I can only describe as a wind go through us. And at the same time, we both closed our eyes for a second to brace for the impact. It's like you can't do anything, so you just kind of clutch and hope it goes away. And
It did.
And it did. The only way I can describe this is that the car passed through us, or we passed through it. We passed through each other. Either that, or we saw a spirit form of a car that had an accident, and the car is reliving its experience, and we happen to be there, you know, or something. But we both felt something rush through, kind of between our atoms, or however, and it was very brief, but it was very distinct feeling. It was the most unusual feeling I'd ever had in my life. But I looked in the rearview mirror after it happened. It's like you wait and you wait, and nothing's happening, and you're like, well, I better open my eyes so I can see where, you know, because we're still moving. And we both look at each other, and I turn around, and sure enough, I saw the car's taillights slowly, you know, going up over the hill after it had passed us, and I thought, this can't be happening, you know, something. And we looked at each other, and it was one of those unspoken things where you know it happened, you just don't talk about it too much, and you know something extraordinary took place that, you know, defies all the known laws of physics.
I think all those experiences are to help us, you know, realize, you know, to keep and remind us and to keep us prodding for, you know, to get back to who and what we are, because we're not producing very much towards our highest potential right now. I mean, mankind as a whole, we've been, you know, kind of spinning our wheels. But I just want to add one more thing before we break for maybe a sandwich and some salad and stuff. It's an analogy I was telling John about that I used in Arizona. We built this, Ruth and I built we couldn't build a physical hovercraft because of many limitations that were going on at the time. We started to build them, and the health department came in and said you can't live in a trailer, even on your own land, etc., etc. That's all different stories. So we decided to design and build a hovercraft in the form of a home, which we did. And in fact, later on, Ty, if you like, I've got the scrapbook. You could scan it if you like.
I would love to do that.
Okay. So we took the side of a hill facing north, which they said no, and the side of the hill, which they said no, and they in granite rock, which they said no. The blasting costs alone will restrict you from building, but you saw it before we even built on it. It was just a piece of nothing on the side of a hill, but we had unlimited knowing and faith that, you know, no problem. We're gonna build this hovercraft replica in the shape of a home right here. And Ruth went to the center and just marked it. That's the center point. So, and we got married on that center point. And then we proceeded. We took we got a stick with a nail in the top of it and a string, and that was our what do you call these guys?
Survey.
Survey. That was our survey tool. And so we stuck it down on the ground, and Ruth went out to the end, and we walked in a 45 degree circle. Actually, it was 46, allowing for the outside edge, but it was 45 feet. And that was the beginning of this home that we built. And I won't get into that now, but there's many people that came during that time that were interested in ideas that were coming to us daily on I mean, we weren't doing anything but having fun building this home, and we'd never built anything before in our life, and here is this beautiful structure kind of building itself. We built it in a circle.
When did you do this?
Huh?
When was this done?
80.
Was it 85 or 86, somewhere around there? It's still there. In fact, I still own half of it. Well, half of the land. But anyway, the point I was getting to was people would come and they'd want to know, because we were in a different state of mind. We were instruments, if you will. We were following natural law and doing things as it felt comfortable. We'd lay a block down, and if it didn't feel good, we'd go have a bite of salad or a cool drink and come back. Now we got to move it, and we move the block, even take the cement off and move the block until it felt, that's it, until it felt right, not looked right, but felt right. And so we, to explain this to people, I was using analogies on the importance of the journey, or the importance of the experience to get from A to B. That's where it's really at, the journey. And I was telling John about this one, that we had a cat. The only reason we went to town so often, which was only, well, it was 3 miles to a grocery store, was because this dang cat would run out of milk and wouldn't go catch many mice without encouraging it with a little milk, etc., etc. So I'd have to go every 2 or 3 days to the store to get some milk. And I started resenting this cat. The damn thing was getting to be a nuisance. I was fed up with having to drop my work and get in my car and drive down this dang dusty dirt road 3 miles into town. So every rock became misery. Every time I hit a bump, I'd cuss. And the neighbor that would wave with a smile, I'd say, "Oh, you stupid nut." And I'd keep going. I mean, I was really getting aggravated with this whole scene until I couldn't get any more aggravated. I mean, I'd come home and just practically throw the milk at the cat. I mean, I was really, really upset.
I'll throw the cat.
I know. That's what I should have done. But what happened was there was no place else to go. I was caught up in my own grief that I had created by my perception. The poor cat was just, "I'll take some milk if you got it." I mean, he wasn't doing anything. He wasn't forcing me or anything else. It was me doing all this thing. So I started in line with my building every day and laying these blocks. I think about this. I ponder on this, like, damn it, I got to go get that cat some milk again. And then I look at it from different viewpoints, and then all of a sudden it hit me that I ought to start lightening up on this, because it was taking hours to get this damn cat some milk. I mean, it was taking, by the time I stopped and I get out of these grubby cement-filled clothes and clean up a little bit and get in my car and so forth and get back, maybe an hour and a half would go by, seemingly. It just seemed like a long time. So I started somewhere along the line to look at things differently. I started to say, well, you know, oh goody, I get to go get the cat some milk. I mean, I tried to use that technique. It didn't work. But I found that in between those two extremes, I started just getting interested in the bumps. Like, oh, well, that rolled that ballpoint pen to that side of the dashboard. Now, maybe this one will roll it back. I became involved with the journey, with the trip to town. And then the guy would wave, and I said, well, I wonder, I'm going to wave with a smile like, hi. And the guy lit up like a Christmas tree and threw that energy back to me, and I felt, oh, this isn't so bad. So I was changing my perception of the trip. And in becoming occupied, or becoming occupied with the adventure, the time span shortened itself. Like, I'd go and come back with the milk and say, oh God, I'm back already. It just seemed like I was gone a few minutes because I was into the adventure instead of fighting it. So the more I got into the adventure, or the journey, the shorter the time. Like I got so like I was trying to prolong the time because I was starting to enjoy the little break in the workaday world there, putting the house together. So the bottom line to the story was that I had cleared out all my resistance to journey, realizing that it was important to enjoy each step and don't fight it, that it's all important, and that just forget about time, because it doesn't really exist anyway, and no matter what. I don't know how to explain that right now, but anyway, what happened, these trips got so they seemed like minutes to go to town. And then one day I was sitting there and it was time to think about getting the cats some milk, but I had some people coming from Belgium or somewhere. They wanted very much to be there, and I was waiting for them, and they hadn't shown up yet, and I didn't want to miss them on the road or whatever. And I said, well, I can't go now, and I don't want to go after dark. I'm at an impasse. I don't know what to do. So I just relaxed for a moment and opened the refrigerator door, and there was a fresh gallon of milk there. I'd never gotten it. I mean, it was fresh. It was still cold from the thing. And to this day, I question that, like a dream or whatever, but see, a part of me knows that lesson, dream or not, it was a reality to me, was to show me that the importance of perception and how we accept what's happening to us. Because it was like I no longer needed the journey to get the milk, because I had successfully balanced everything along the way, so there was no need to go and come. I just opened the refrigerator door and poured the milk.
Not only that, you were willing to make the journey.
Willing, yeah. Willing. I had given up the resistance.
Yeah.
See, John, your thing, what I get with that is, which we say, I don't know how it happened, that's just kind of us being in denial of our abilities. Now, whether that car was a real car, and I would assume it was a real car, but you had the ability, both of you, to dematerialize physical form and put it back together.
Ultimately, I know that. I know what you're saying, and
that's what I get.
I even came to that conclusion afterwards. And one needs not know the exact mechanics involved.
It's too quick. I mean,
right. You don't have time.
You don't need to know the mechanics. Yeah. We know how to do it.
Yeah.
But to practice it daily that's the road, I guess. That's the road.
Yeah, the more we learn not to fight, not to resist the naturalness of things, the more these experiences come to us, and they seem like, of course, or matter of fact, like nothing, piece of cake, or whatever. Because that rollover was a piece of cake. Like, oh yeah, this is neat. Okay, what else is new? That was the attitude I had.
Speaking of piece of cake, let's break this section right now.
Knowledge bubble, which I thought was neat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very openly, just boom, boom, boom.
If I was smart, I would have had my little tape recorder hidden somewhere in the room, behind the lampshade.
But then you
don't forget,
he's
the top security officer. He probably scanned this whole thing before he walked in.
Yeah.
He probably did.
Probably.
Bobby?
By the way, you do know what his last name was, don't you?
Who?
Yeah.
Bobby Czar?
No, Bobby's.
Oh, Bobby. What is his last name?
For the record, now.
Jackson.
What?
Jackson.
Jackson.
Bobby Jackson.
Sounds
Michael
like
Jackson.
a football player or
He could be. He was a track player.
A track player and a football player.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What he was saying.
From Memphis, Tennessee.
From Memphis, Tennessee?
Mm-hmm. My parents are from Memphis.
Tough to run the camera and pass the plate. Every now and then I have trouble chewing gum at the same time.
Memphis.
But what part of Memphis?
Well,
South Memphis, North Memphis.
I don't. There's just Memphis, Tennessee, as far as I know.
But what did
I've only been to Memphis one day. Or 2 days.
Daytime or nighttime when you were there?
I was there part of day, 2 nights and a day, and 2 days I was there.
Marvelous. Did you get a kick out of it?
Well, I called one of my nephews, nephews, and I asked him, are you related to Rice Smitho?
You did
He said,
call?
you better believe I am. Who are you?
And what did they say?
I said, I'm Rice Smitho's daughter.
Oh my gosh. Did they get a kick out of that?
Yes.
I bet they did. Did they take you out to dinner then? Or
No, I never did even meet him. I just talked to him on the telephone.
what kind of a voice?
What kind of voice? And you want me to explain?
I'd like to see you really respond on that thing.
Shall I put the camera down?
He's going to start drooling. He's going to start drooling.
Look at that. Look, that's being very offensive. You're offending my spirit here. You've got to
I'm
listen.
not doing
here.
anything. Not doing a thing.
So, and you were born in Kentucky, right?
No, I was born in the snowy mountains of Montana.
What part of Montana?
About 100 miles from Billings, Montana.
Billings, Montana? Oh, okay. Billings, Montana.
Why don't you get the camera out before
And-
you leave?
Why don't you? I'm not a photographer.
You were born on a farm. I mean, out in China. You were
I
lived
was born
on a farm.
on a real farm where the little old shack was built by my dad, and where you went to outhouses and you saved Sears and Roebuck catalogs.
Yeah, I remember those days. And you had nothing to do except learn, so you taught yourself a lot of things.
I knew how I learned, but I also learned how to pick potato bugs, and I learned how to plant, and I learned how to do milk cows. And,
1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I can
Is
milk
that glass
cows.
going to flash and ruin it?
Well, that's interesting.
Yes, I know a little bit.
Oh, you know what? That's right.
All right.
Shall we watch you go to the bathroom?
I'm going to get some pictures.
This is something. Are we in a photo shoot?
I mean, it looks like it.
That's what I told Ty. I sent him one of my
You
Chippendales.
guys are going to kill my spirit. My spirit's going to die.
I promise none of the pictures will be used for radionic purposes.
Okay. Ralph, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Ralph doesn't know which way to look.
All right. Stand next to Ralph first.
I'm going to sit on his lap.
Woo!
Way to go. Good job.
All right.
Get a couple more.
I will.
Everybody.
Okay.
Gotta get you here.
Okay, I'm going to turn this off for a minute.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No.
Ralph.
We'll save it for later. We'll have it during the 11 o'clock.
During the movie.
During the movie.
While you're talking, would you use this time?
Certainly will.
Bubble.
Say Frankie.
He sings to me all the time.
Come here, baby.
He does. He sings to me.
Do I?
Uh-huh.
Okay, that's good.
Well, you sing and I can't sing.
No, I got a gal. Her name was Eve. Eve. Give me a piece of pie.
That sounds like a Popeye song. Is that one of them old sailor songs?
Yeah, old sailor song, yeah. Yeah, that was from the sailor days. For my next number,
Down on the waterfront, huh?
down on the waterfront. No, I don't know what to say with this thing in front of me. Come here, honey.
But we were talking about, you were talking about the stealth and talking to
To Bobby John.
Bobby Jackson today, and
About Area 51.
about Area 51.
And 2 and 3 and 4.
Yep.
Yeah, he was telling us about the stack of badges he needed
To get up the stairs.
just
and
to
one
get
up
up
there.
the stairs.
Is
And,
that okay to be?
well, it's not going to
Sure.
go, that one's not going to
He would not tell us anything that was
Right,
classified.
okay.
I mean, he just wouldn't. Yeah, well, I thought it was a real interesting visit. And I know he enjoyed everybody here, too.
That's the thing I enjoyed about it, because he was getting enjoyment out of just normal people discussing a subject with which, for him, cannot be discussed with normal people. So we gave him the opportunity, whether he verbalized it or not, to discuss the subject.
Which is necessary once in a while to put things in order.
Right.
See if you check all your bases and see if they're, are correct. Where's your flash?
Yeah. How long it's taking to...
I'm surprised the battery's getting it.
Didn't say. I'm trying to listen.
Yeah, because
It didn't take
Ralph, can you think of anything about you and your relationship with Otis and that experience that you want to mention? Anything comes to mind? You didn't...
Well,
let me get one on my camera.
his favorite symbol was the hummingbird,
Let's see.
and this was to represent freedom
Oh, it's not even moved down to the
or
one
free
there,
energy.
that's fine.
Oh.
I remember discussing things like, oh, you got it. How did you do that?
Well, this I was taking it with my camera because hers haven't flashed for some reason. I mean, hers, I don't believe it's got hooked on.
Ooh.
No.
Huh?
No, it's not hooked down.
Oh, you
'Cause it
didn't
wasn't-
have any...
It was, the film's in there, but it's not hooked on.
Anyway, about levitation, about the resonator cavity that's mentioned in Art Aho's book, Tomorrow's Energy Need Not Be Fuel, that the bumblebee, through the beat of its wings, reaches the resonant frequency of the Earth, being roughly around 7.8 cycles per second, and simply frees himself from the gravitational field of this body because he's created one of his own around his own body. And next.
So is that why the bees look like they are just sort of hovering?
They are indeed hovering. I mean, that's...
They've created that gravity,
There's a force field.
the field around them. They zero out the gravity around them.
It's a completely magnetic field around them. It's just like they're in a bubble, inside a magnetic bubble.
So do they tilt a little bit to go left and right, you think?
They don't have to. They let the Earth tilt. Let's see. Then dolphins, fish, the way they go through the water, everything is spiraling. It comes off the ends of the tail. That's why they have tremendous speeds, abrupt speeds in microseconds. They can attain incredible gyrations, changing directions.
So are they creating this field around them, or are they utilizing the...
There's a vortex spinning constantly, and they become a part of that vortex. And it's just like trying to put water down a tube. The more you try to force it through the tube, the more resistance you're going to get and the less water you're going to get through the tube. But if you spiral the water through the tube, by rifling the barrel of the tube or whatever means necessary to get the water spinning, you can get twice the volume out of the same situation. Rather than forcing it, you're allowing it to complete its cycle. As it comes full circle and get a lot of energy.
You're practicing.
Okay.
You're practicing, Ralph.
It's perfect, Ralph.
You're practicing. We all need this kind of practice. Anything that comes to mind.
Just think of it as a popsicle stick.
Okay.
I mean, you're back as a kid on the block, and you're playing with a popsicle stick.
And I'm learning.
Well, there are a lot of things that, could be incorporated now, invisible fencing to, there's been, I've seen horses badly maimed and cattle badly maimed by barbed wire fences, deer, a lot of deer hanging, paired that couldn't get free of them. And it's unnecessary with our technology to have this antiquated means of of fencing and based only on the aluminum companies or the metal companies' payroll, or people are employed to produce the fencing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. An invisible fence can be produced by 3 people, basically.
And one step further into
Huh?
one step further into electrical, the
Yeah.
pole above the earth, the pole into the earth.
Right.
Use both magnetic systems, and energy was available to every
Well,
household without wires.
People by now have seen the first stages of free energy, which came out in by way of solar energy. You put a panel up, no moving parts, no noise, no pollution, no maintenance, basically, to be performed on them, day in, day out, producing from sand, if you will, glass, sand, electricity through the piezoelectric effect, enough electricity that can be converted to 110 very easily, or be used directly as 110 right off the solar panel. The power companies have built receptacles and power using equipment based on 60 cycles. And that's the accepted idea, that we have to use just 60 cycles to do everything, and it's ridiculous. There's many other cycles available that we can do. Look at Troy. He went from South Carolina to California on a 3-wheel cycle, or any kind of a cycle. I don't know. What am I doing here?
We're trying to figure out how many cycles that Ralph Ring operates on.
Well,
We won't get into all of them.
my last name may be a clue. Ring. I don't know. It seems to never really begin or never really end anywhere. It just keeps going and going and going. But I need that catalyst to become a spiraling vortex, and that's where Mrs. Ring. And she spirals my cortex.
Jeez, and I didn't think you were going to tell everything, Ralph. I mean, there were some things that you were going to hold back on, Ralph.
Oh, you have such a beautiful smile, eh?
Mr. Ring, how does this affect your energy field and the energy field of the planet when this spiraling takes place?
How does it affect the energy field of the planet?
Or your own energy field? Do you float?
When I'm doing what?
Careful, Ralph. I mean, I'm not going to touch this. This is going to be the X-rated ring. Ring, 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 ring.
We'll erase this tape, of course. We all know
Okay. Well, you know, all the secrets of the universe are right on the end of our nose. We keep looking everywhere else. There, like enlightenment, lighten up, and so forth and so on. And what happens is when you get a joyous idea, or in a joyous situation with joyous friends, etc., the electron spin itself around the atoms in the body increases. Everything increases through centrifugal force alone, not to mention centripetal, which is going on simultaneously, but centrifugal force alone starts to lighten up everything. Your thoughts, your body itself becomes lighter. If you're engaged in a laugh, you can lift your arms very easily, but if you're engaged in a frown, it's very hard to get your arms up. And it's that simple. Well, I don't know, it sounds good.
That's all we need, just what sounds good.
Okay. And John's getting ready to go back to Sedona. He's a little late. He's got to get to work at 8 o'clock in the morning. And he's going all the way back to Sedona tonight.
Maybe he's...
Maybe I need to...
Well, if you could say a few words.
Maybe I need to be transported there, like, right now.
Hey, what color do you think it'll take you to reach?
What do you think?
Go ahead.
I'm asking the question, what color on the spectrum will get you there? What vibrational frequency do you think Sedona is?
That's my
Kind of an orange rust, because that's the rock
I'm gonna say that's the egg timer.
formation there.
Hard-boiled eggs. You turn.
John, you were asking me about
Runs down. That's true.
dimensions, different dimensions,
Like a terrarium.
and how I saw them.
It's very cool.
And I wanted to answer that before I left.
Terrarium on top.
To put it very simply, I don't view dimensions in a linear fashion. Like you have hours, and then you have one after that that's a little bit differently, and you pass through that and you have another one after that, and there's one before us. I'd rather see dimensions. We have hours, or what we perceive to be our three, and time being the fourth. And then we have overlapping dimensions, in front and behind and above and below, that are separate unto themselves if you enter them fully, yet share some of the qualities of all the other dimensions, share some aspect of all of the others. And it's kind of like this photograph. If this were our dimension here, there's another dimension that has some of the same qualities of our dimension, yet for the most part it has its own set of values. Okay? And then there's another dimension that kind of touches on the first two, ours, another one, and its own, and it shares some of the qualities of these two, yet for the most part it has its own set of rules and its own set of ways to be once you're in that dimension. However, the golden thread throughout all of these is where they overlap, okay, is where all dimensions overlap, and that would be the universal truth that binds all those dimensions together. And this may be certain universal laws governing giving and receiving in all manifestations, whether it be energy or spiritually or socially, emotionally. I think all dimensions that are possible, they share something in common.
I'd just like to share, if you can just get a picture of that. This is something that's been coming to me much more clearly of late, and this is like a two-dimensional drawing. It's actually a three-dimensional space.
Yeah.
12-pointed star, and what I get is the 12 dimensions that are part of this particular unit of space. I say that because I see this as one bubble of 12 dimensions. I see more bubbles continuing, but the one that we're affiliated with, this is the 0 point. This is our God
Pick
center.
it up just a little bit while you're doing
This is our God center. This is our beingness. This is what connects us to all that is. This is throughout eternity. This is throughout all matter. What I'm getting is that in each one of these dimensions, we do flow freely in our spirit form, in our knowingness form. Right now, the image that we get is that in this dream state, call this third dimension right here, there's matter, there's antimatter, there's a vortex of counter energies in each one of these dimensions, but there's always the central point that we are. We always are in that point. time is coming that all these barriers are going to be solved. The knowingness of, at this point in time, I honestly believe I am in 8th dimension, I am in 12th, I am in 3rd, I am consciously out there on some level doing that, but here in this speaking position, I am very much aware of my 3rd dimensional body here. What I think happens in teleportation is that for an instant we are totally gathered here at the 0 point, and all this becomes instantly available to us. The whole universe of knowledge of matter, everything becomes instantly available to us. And using this principle, you can see how everything flows in a figure 8. I don't get any understanding that it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Each one counters and balances itself, because when you are going through interdimensional space, space-time folds in on itself. So you're not looking at...
When you say it falls in on itself, is that like an implosion?
Okay, not really an implosion, Tyler. It's more... What I see is like on this side of the coin, you have 6 colors. Picture this as the 6 colors of the rainbow, and the center here is violet. Red, orange, yellow, green, indigo. The center is violet. On the other side, you've got the other side of the spectrum, because if you look at the full magnetic spectrum, if you were to look at it and you're looking from infrared, ultraviolet, on beyond both directions, I truly believe that as you come around the full curve, you meet yourself. It's an identical curve. It's a never-ending curve. This is the same thing. So as you come through here, at this vortex, you come back out into this side. It's antimatter matter, but you also have this in each dimension. Okay? So what we see as our color, our rainbow, corresponds to why we feel so in tune with the forces of piano, that, you know, and this is not anything new. I'm not, you know, saying anything that everybody around here doesn't know, but this 7-dimensional chord on the piano, if you add to that the black notes on the piano, you once again come up with 7 plus 5, you come up with the 12 petals. Everywhere you go, you look at the biblical concept. You have the 12 disciples, you have the master in the center, which is us. We are the God essence. Each one of us holds that God essence. So I just wanted to share that as a...
That's good. I'm going to send you something that Ken has published, Ken Page, because on the cover he uses the same thing, except that
he goes into gravity.
Yeah.
Who exactly is Ken Page?
He's a nuclear physicist. He's a doctor of a computer scientist. He's
he's a environmentalist in his own right.
He's very much into free energy.
Yeah, but he's leaning also these days, when he takes a break from free energy, he's getting into cultivation, ways of cultivating the earth and planting, things like that.
We'll have to get down to see him. Because
He is located where?
in Chino Valley, Arizona.
Why has he? If he's been working on this all this time, why hasn't he done something with it?
Well, he has done a lot of things with it, but for financial reasons, the people that backed him and wanted to control what he was doing, he backed off or terminated.
There's a lot of fear involved because of what he ran into when he was moving in his own center and found that control was all around him. So he tried to move away from that control and found out that as he now tries to create free energy, there's still people that want to control again, find some way to control that, which is what we are really all about as we sit here. I feel that we're looking at ways that all can benefit from what we're doing here, that humanity can advance equality, not looking for one to earn millions and one to be in the gutter. We're really truly looking at the no ties.
What would that look like?
I didn't quite understand the question.
What would that kind of business, or what kind of form could you see us here using?
Oh, and I mean, a true relationship, a true family. You know, there are many principles that are put out, whether it's biblically speaking, whether it's, as we discussed earlier, the Basque Legion Monogam principle. Love each other, really care about each other as much as we love ourselves. If we stick to those basic principles, we are all going to be expanded.
Something to share, Rob?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to.
Oh, I was going to ask you about that.
Well, I just wanted to share this with. It's just a tie-in with what Jonna was saying there. This is the 12 that she was. I just wanted to elaborate a little bit more on it. This represents.
Can you pick that up just a hair so that we can?
You know, perhaps this could be a replica of a true solar system intact, where people or planets weren't, you know, missing and causing an ellipse or a imbalance in the system. It's alleged that the asteroid belt that circles between Mars and Jupiter was once a planet that, for one reason or another, blew up, etc., etc. Anyhow, it goes on infinitum. This particular thing here I wanted to show was a correlation that nature has. It's almost like the sense of humor that Ty said that God has. All these clues are out here on the end of our nose if we just take a look at them and see what could they possibly mean. And this one here, as you look at it, could well represent a solar system. It certainly represents on the atomic stage in the microcosm the atoms and the whirling particles around an atom. But it also represents the Last Supper with the sun in the center and the disciples. Also the third planet from the left, which was, if you remember, the third disciple, went crooked.
He betrayed.
All the planets in our system, to the best that they can determine, have an 8-degree tilt on their axis, except for this one. We have a 23.5-degree tilt. We are actually dangerously wobbly in our orbit. And anyway, it's just food for thought or something to think about the correlation. Another thing that I'll just share quickly and pass this on is this is in Jung's book on symbols. Jung wrote, he's one of the foremost writers on symbology. This is one of the most, or is the most ancient symbol known to man. And the Hopi Indians use this symbol to represent the 4 seasons and the cardinal points of the compass and in the infinity and the balance of all, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But also, I've discovered that if you spell the word, thank you, dear. I'll try to do it. Well, that's a G, and then you put an O and a D superimposed, you have that circle. So it's just interesting correlations or interesting things that, you know.
I happen to agree with that sense of humor.
I'd like
I
to
happen to agree that all through the ancient books, scriptures and things, the answers are in there. They may be coded a little bit, but it's part of our, we have to look. Like I say, they're right there, we have to look. You have to read between the lines, or maybe you don't have to read between the lines, you have to just see.
Follow the dots.
To see what it says, take a look in nature, what you have. It was all done for a reason.
Well, you know, I discovered, and Ruthie and I kind of really have played with this a lot, that with the Alice in Wonderland, when Lewis Carroll wrote Alice in Wonderland, perhaps he was really writing about a place that's very similar and related to where and who and what we are. Everything seems to be reversed here. Upside down, the harder you go in one direction, the more you'll get pulled or pushed in the other direction, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, forgot what I was going to say. Got that one.
Yeah, but I think John.
Go ahead, John.
I'd like to take this one step further into some of the technology that we've been discussing in these past couple of days, and referring especially to cards disk. And that is to add the central Utron here and extend the disk out here on either side to these, let's call these Utrons, and maybe the two beyond that as pressure for the Utron, okay? And put the whole thing in a
Very interesting shape.
You could also simplify that again, or another thought is if you look from the top down at the car vehicle, each one of these spokes is where the placement of the neutron would occur. If you look at the rhythms of levitation, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now if you add that up, you come up with a 12. And that, I believe, is the pulse. If you come across in threes, you get your tetrahedron. You're going to have your tetrahedron, 3 tetrahedrons within them. And I really feel that's part of, what our key is.
That's the 3 axis too.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly. Another thing I just wanted to add for the camera. We talked earlier for a few minutes about the tapes, the galaxy tapes, and I just wanted to share about magnetics, because I think it's really important that people just give this a thought. If you have north and south on the magnet, and what you do, but coming across the center at 90-degree angle, so this is your magnet going up and down, coming across the center, you have another force field, which is where your magnetism is. Usually people think of this in the center here as your block wall BLOCH, where you have a non-space or a non-energy point in any magnet. That's where, if you've got this 90-degree cutoff, you can see where magnetism really starts. This here represents a dual 6-pointed star. 6 points of matter, 6 points of antimatter. And here you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, it goes both ways, I'm sorry. In the magnetism, you don't have, at least what I got, was it's not just, it's across either way. Does that make sense? If you have a north-south, okay, now if you have a north-south, you have, your 90 degrees are going both ways. You don't just have a straight line. You do have a cross cutting the magnetism. Now that's
and that's the 6-pointed star.
Right, exactly. Then when you come into counter magnetism and working with gravity, what I have gotten is everything is at 45 degrees, at 45-degree angle to those grids. This would be, and it's been very difficult to draw them. They keep saying we're going to make one, because then you translate this into your color system, you translate it into your sound system, you translate it into your
total harmonics.
Right, and that's, to me, is about as simple as you can get with a unified field, because that translates into everything that we see. And another thing that came up just now that I really just want to add is that male, female, what I see in atomic structure is that simple. Everything that I was taught in chemistry, everything that I was taught in physics never really made sense. The vibrational frequency is the only thing that makes a difference. And when these two, the father-son universe is a translation, when these two constantly come together, come apart, come together, come apart, and this figure-8 game of life constantly, the only thing that's the difference between this being a hydrogen atom or a helium atom or a carbon or an oxygen atom is how fast this moves. And as we talked earlier about the stealth, you're not looking at visually. If you can picture that something, figure a strobe light effect. If something is moving that quickly. If you've watched dancers dancing, it looks like they're just, you just see a statue, a blank, a statue, a blank, as they're moving. And that's what I think is the basis for atomic structure. It's not what we're taught about, these wonderful little things that circle around in their rings.
It's tachyon energy.
Right. It's a whole nother picture. It's so simple because then you can come back to your Walter Russell material, your point of zero energy, or your 0 point, and this all makes sense. The more I've thought about it, the more I've been, trying to see how that all fits.
Okay, so could you say the 0 point is the total white light of God?
Right.
There's no color spectrum, it's
Right.
white. It is what
Right.
people say when their conception of the light of God. In any biblical scripture, those that have claimed to have seen God the Father, they've seen just a brilliant white light. Okay, the duality comes to bring about our existence that gets separated into a spectrum. And the spectrum has colors, and with each color is a vibrational frequency, or a sound.
And you see, by adjusting your oscillations, by adjusting your angstroms, whatever it might be that you're playing with, that's the only adjustments you need. And I really feel with this, you're also on the track to creating matter in any form. Any form, whether you want to create gases, whether you want to create metal.
So let me interrupt. You can change the difference between an oxygen atom and a helium atom and a I don't know the elements, I have them here. Another one is the frequency of the vibration, the frequency with which something vibrates.
So the strobe, if it looks like 16, is that carbon. The strobe that looks like, 2 is that.
So there's not really more of them there, but like she said, when the strobe comes on, it looks like there's maybe, let's say, an oxygen atom, and I don't know that.
It's food for thought, these are things that have been really getting clearer and clearer over my lifetime that really make sense as we move.
So you're saying, I want to clarify this. So if you have a strobe light on something, at that point when it illuminates it, it looks like everything is stopped for a second, and they see 5. Let's say this structure has 5 atoms, and they call that oxygen, and then they shoot another thing, and that's okay. They shoot the strobe again on another, not oxygen, but helium, and that has 7.
Your picture.
Huh?
Your picture, what you were showing me earlier. I would really like to get on the camera.
Oh.
And that is the picture and the
Troy, would you do me a favor and grab that photograph?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Okay.
That ties in what we're talking
But
about.
is that what you're communicating? So when you have the strobe light on, let's say this is an
Also,
oxygen atom, this is
the
a
3
helium atom, this is a
the
carbon
crystals, the 2 crystals and the little aluminum.
I'd just like to say that the ultimate cosmic joke, or whatever, the sense of humor
that caught that
really doesn't have any end, and I've yet to be wise enough or still enough to realize it myself, but I know that the answer to every question is in the question. The answer is there, right in the question. It's part of the answer is the question. Anyway, for what it's worth.
Okay, we've talked about speculation here, and there's something more than speculation, because you have literally flown in a zero gravity craft in 19 what?
Well, I don't know if it was flown. I feel that word is kind of limiting. I experienced
Being transferred?
teleportation,
No.
dimensional travel.
Okay, whatever. I don't think it was flight. I experienced what would you call it?
Relocation.
Teleportation.
Relocation.
Relocation.
Probably
whatever.
through
You moved,
I
you
went
were,
from point A to point B and back again with no G-force at all. No, and beyond the sense of time, beyond
How many miles?
65 miles.
In about how much time?
Well, there were 2 time clocks on us. There was one at about 3 seconds, and the other, our clocks were about 15 minutes, roughly. So I don't know how to figure that all out, but that's the way it came out. That our time was different than their time.
Does this look like the vehicle?
Well, no, this is a small version of
right.
it.
This is
I do have a picture of the 45-foot replica of the craft in there somewhere. I don't know where it is right now.
But it was round and it had
Yeah, that's
similar
basically
features, right?
So Ralph, as you explained before, and I asked you kind of in depth last time, you got in the vehicle, they fired it up, which means they started the wheels spinning, and from the point when they it was a go, you arrived at another place in a matter of a few seconds without any feeling of going anywhere. But you actually got out of the vehicle at that point, picked up some rocks, like you said. I don't have to tell this because Ralph can tell you the same thing, but the question I asked Ralph was, did anybody, because they have people downrange to visually see it, the craft was visible from point A to point B, and from my understanding, it wasn't visible between the 2 points. So what that means is the craft, because of the neutrons and the zero gravity principles, it not just hovered, it went out of the third dimension or fourth dimension, okay, and I don't understand the dimensional process, but it was at a point and it showed up at another point without physically traveling that point.
There was not a duality so that it couldn't be picked up by the physical senses. The retina can't perceive those cycles per second. It's something like a neutrino coming into the atmosphere. It's asexual before it hits the atmosphere. Once it hits the atmosphere, it becomes dual. It becomes a proton and an electron. So what essentially, perhaps, how this could be explained as we went back out where the neutrino was, or in a reverse form. It became one with space, not matter. We went beyond the vibratory rate of matter, which is a very slow. Matter only exists in so many cycles per second, so that below that it gets denser and denser and denser down to your lead, etc. They're heavier metals, the slower the vibratory rate. So you accelerate that vibratory rate.
And that's what the car craft did.
Like a fan blade, it disappeared, and then you go beyond the fan blade disappearance, like on this bench model. We could put our hands through this thing eventually as the cycles per second were so extraordinarily fast. It was like Jell-O. We could touch the skin, and then pretty soon our hands were going inside.
That's a new point that you were just bringing up about that, which you haven't shared with us. And those are the kind of things that, as we talk about this, Ralph, those things will come back to you, and those are important parts, because that is showing what's happening to matter when you increase the vibratory rate. When you go out of the vibration of our planetary sphere, you move into another dimension. We were discussing the 12 dimensions. They all have their own level of vibration, their own color, or whatever.
Were the neutrons that went around the periphery of the inside disk of the flying models, were they made of aluminum?
Mm-hmm.
They were? Mm-hmm. Were they spinning on their little axes?
They weren't meant to spin. They were meant to just sit at that peculiar angle, particular angle. Mm-hmm. They weren't meant to spin. Now, they might have spun. I don't know. I really don't know.
Were they
weren't meant to spin.
The central accumulator, if I understand that correctly, was that made of copper on the outside?
There were two metals, one being copper and the other being aluminum. But the copper was
was it
I don't remember.
Was it like the outer sheath was copper on over this aluminum?
No, it was. There were two distinct.
Or was it layered like a battery?
I don't remember. There were two metals involved in the central accumulator.
How about the craft itself, the skin of the craft? What was that? Was that
All
aluminum?
aluminum.
Ralph, I have another thing. Can you explain what you felt like mentally when you were in the craft during that time? You mentioned earlier it was the state, the way you felt with your knowledge and awareness. How did that, can you explain that?
Well, yeah, I felt completely natural and normal, except that I could, my capacity for simultaneous thinking was seemingly endless. I could think of 20 different things simultaneously and execute thought patterns simultaneously and come to conclusions simultaneously with no trouble at all. It wasn't just one thought.
Was it easy to visualize something and put a little picture out in front of you, or just create a picture and look at it? Was that more acute or anything?
Well, creating pictures in that state, you're creating reality, you're
Okay.
creating matter, because you're slowing the vibratory of the molecules down and actually starting to create a matter form or a
You started aligning molecules?
ether form, if you will.
You started aligning the ether into form.
Responding to your thoughts.
So,
Yeah.
could you say you were
Direct-
exercising
more
our
direct.
God-given ability to create?
Oh, well, absolutely.
Okay.
No doubt about it. We're the big joke. No, not a joke. The sense of humor that we'll soon become aware of is that we're already doing these things. We're already there, et cetera, but we've cut ourselves back in our thinking process. We don't have to go anywhere. We're already there. We just have to uncover.
Remember.
Remember is the word.
That's what Merlin said. Just remember.
Is that what Margaret said?
Remember what you've forgotten.
And this is the lady from the King Arthur court, who used to play in Stonehenge, etc., from England. Oldtown.
You ought to tell some of your story about your teachers.
Yes.
Come on, Jonna.
I'm Jonna.
Tell us about some of them, what they instructed you on. This is a real life experience.
All I know is that going to school was pretty interesting for me because it seemed like I'd already been taught pretty much everything that they teach me in school, at least in the early phases. I skipped lots of grades. But especially geometry. I remember when that came along, most of us went to an all-girls school at the time. Most of the girls just hated the thought of going into that math class. And I was just in seventh heaven because it just was bringing back so many memories. You really wanted me to talk about who really taught me.
It means you're going to have to come out of the closet, dear.
Well, I always had friends that other people were not aware of as a child, and they say that children should not, they sit down, they've got their little friends, and they sit down and have tea parties, and they talk to their little friends. Well, I can remember I was born in a tavern, and out on the back, there were fire steps going down the back of the tavern, and I used to go out there, sit on the steps alone. I used to spend a lot of time alone, and that's where I would talk to my friends. But these were not little friends. These were not little playmates, same age as me friends. These were my blue light friends. Occasionally it was the female form, but usually it was what I call my blue light man. The reason I say that is because they were surrounded by a brilliant blue light. And I never questioned that there was any problem with these people coming and teaching me. I think it was pretty tall, pretty slender. They weren't dressed at all like us. I mean, they didn't dress in, the normal shirts and sweats and things like that at all. Best I can recall, it was more, trying to picture me now, more of a flowing robe, but for the most part, I didn't see too much of their bodies. It was more a brilliant light. And the communication was telepathic. I had no problem with telepathy. And as a child, I was very cognizant of my creative abilities, you know, that as I thought, so things were. And I can recall when I was about 4 years old, playing out in the street with a group of little kids, and there was this neat old guy that lived in the village, and he wasn't very clean, and he kind of lived in a rundown place. And I can remember that day, the kids were all shouting out his name was Dan, and they started calling out Dan, Dan, dirty old man, and that may seem funny, but I cried. And I was negating it as fast as it was coming out of my mouth, because I felt so much responsibility for affecting the world around me, that even for these kids to verbalize words that were so powerful just horrified me. Because I knew that even my mental thinking was that powerful. And so here these kids, you know, hollering really bothered me. So that's all I have to say.
John's got to leave for Sedona. He's on his way. Say goodbye to John.
Goodbye, John.
And
Been a pleasure.
Bye, John.
John, we love you very much.
yeah,
I
thanks
love
very
all
much.
of you very much.
Thanks very
Safe
much for
journey.
coming.
You too.
Thank you.
Say hello to
It's been
everybody in
wonderful.
Sedona.
Yeah, and well,
You see Ken telling that his spirit was here, even if his body wasn't. And we'll
I've
be
got
down to
some-
visit his body soon.
I've got some taped messages to bring in. I taped a lot of it yesterday. And hopefully, are we going to be producing this for sale to the members?
PBS.
Or?
Just PBS. That's public broadcasting.
I've got to get a copy of the tapes. And,
Okay.
you know, my kingdom for a copy.
Got it.
Say hi
Have
to
a safe
Ken,
trip.
too.
I sure will.
And Bill. You see him?
Yeah, I see Bill Brown about once a week.
Tell him I said hi. They'll know me as Benjamin, John Benjamin. Oliver.
Oh, really? John and Benjamin? Oh, okay. Now, you've met Ken.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, because he didn't, sometimes I have to jar Ken's memory.
He took him out of the hospital
Oh.
when I saw him.
all
His
right.
wife was just, and I mean, there was some
Oh, okay. So
real
he
difficult.
was going through some money.
Yeah. So I wouldn't expect to remember a whole lot.
All right.
God bless.
Take care.
All right. See you later.
Ralph will stay in touch. You give me a hug.
I'll get up and give you a hug. Okay.
Oh, you're wonderful.
Thank you.
What was that? What?
The zebra,
What happened?
he died and went to heaven.
Okay, went to heaven.
Yeah. And he asked St. Peter, am I white with black stripes, or am I white with black stripes? Am I black with white stripes, or am I white with black stripes? St. Peter didn't know, so he sent him on to God. And he asked God the same question. And God said, you are what you are. He pondered that and went back to St. Peter, and he said, I don't understand. All God told me was, he said to me, you are what you are. And he said, well, that's very understandable. You're white with black stripes. He said, how do you figure that? He said, God told you, you are what you are. If you'd have been black with white stripes, he would have said, you is what you is.
Okay.
Well, I'll put in my pudding joke, about, well, I mean, do you know what happens to a duck that flies upside down?
No, tell me.
It clacks up.
Yes, dear.
Oh, I had that good one, that one that's recording.
What was it?
I don't remember. Johnny, your story was interesting, but you stopped so short of all the interesting stuff. But that's okay. You don't have to go through that.
Where is the alleged Holy Grail? Is that in Glastonbury Abbey? I understand, but the legend of King Arthur and Glastonbury Abbey is very much to this day still intact, with the well still intact.
Yeah, I mean, it's all there. It's
all there.
But you
Holy
see,
Grail is still there?
but you know, it was taken away from there and it was taken to Avalon.
Taken
Isn't
to
that the
Avalon.
way the story goes? And Avalon moved into the mist beyond three-dimensional space and is now in another dimension and will come again, because in the old days those dimensions were very visible to us. We'd walk in and out of those dimensions.
That's where Ruthie came to me from, was Avalon, out of the mist. She truly did in my other realities. And she, with her sisters, reminded me very much in my childhood realities of Wonder Woman and all her sisters on the Isles of Infinity somewhere, or Avalon, if you will.
Part of the play, huh?
So,
Part of the play.
yeah, I mean, a sense of
Through the
humor.
looking glass?
Through the looking glass.
Alice in Wonderland.
Sense of humor of God is just, it's amazing. I mean, you know, it's just really a wonderment. That was a nice joke, I like that. You is what you is.
Well, you know, the funny part is the same. I told that joke down at the shop one day, and there was a black guy who came in and just, I don't even know what we were talking about, but he just come right out with that, "You is what you is." I just cracked up.
You were saying that you have that tetrahedron just like this, and you have the other one that goes like this. And then you have another one that goes, does that do the 12-point stop? Okay.
I really can't do it. I've tried several times to draw it. I'm going to have to just do it because that's the only way I can.
One of the things Jonna got, she got visually, and I don't know if you got it in writing, like in automatic writing, but it had to do, this is really interesting, it had to do with Star Wars satellite systems. And she said, what the satellite that she saw, now I'd like you to draw a picture of what you saw that they put up there.
It just looks like a, you know, the jacks that kids
jack.
play with the ball and the jack.
Draw a picture of it.
That's what it looks like. And I'm not sure I can draw one of those. You know, that crisscross kind of like.
It doesn't matter, and then put the knobs
And
on
some of
there.
them have got knobs on them, but I don't remember which ones do and which ones don't. But that's what I saw. And I didn't know at the time that that was number 18 out of 24, but I remember saying to him, when they're done, they'll have 24.
Oh, you mean the Challenger shots that were supposed to be putting these things up?
There's 24 of these satellites that will be up in the lake. And that also ties in with exactly what we were talking about with the 12 points. And just keeps confirming for me, because when you've got 24 points, what they're moving into is having your 12 points of stabilizing that matter, and then your 12 points of destabilizing. And think of that as warping energy in space.
So
That's pretty profound. I really think that's possible now. I really think that's what we're moving into through that.
So you got that's what the government, that's their...
Yeah, I don't get, you know, some of this reflected beams of light and those things, you know, that thought pattern. That didn't really resonate a whole lot with me.
They're into more into real dimensional type stuff, right? Interdimensional type.
Yeah, that's what I get.
Well, I think part of the civilization of Earth has never gotten away from it. I think we've always been here. We've been pocket civilizations existing in what to us would be termed other dimensions, just vibrating at a different frequency. This is easily understood when you want to become invisible yourself. For instance, in moving from point A to point B in a busy city, without distraction, you play yourself really low key. You lower your vibratory rate, and you, in a sense, become a very adaptable chameleon, moving with the flow of things very rapidly so that nobody really sees you.
Yeah, I've done that to such a point that in my office, I would be there, and that was at a time when you had to clock in, so, you know, it was known that I was there. And people would come looking for me, but it was at the time that I wanted to do. work, but I didn't want interruption. I had lots of people that I was training at the time, and it worked. They would walk right to the door. They would walk right by the door. They could not see me. They had, and later when I said I'd been here all morning, they could not believe, and that happened pretty regularly. So I 100. As I'm driving down the freeway, I may have been doing it for a purpose. I just was in a hurry. I didn't want to be sidetracked. But if you do it when you're in a car, you better undo it, because vehicles will not even see your vehicle. You're very likely to have them swing right over into your lane, not even see you. And I don't mean the usual one where they don't see out the inside mirror. That it happens with such frequency, they literally cannot see you.
I think your subconscious, though, is your guardian angel, if you will, or whatever, is really keenly aware of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Like Steve says, there's no accidents, so that if it's meant to be a journey without accident or incident, it will be, depending on what.
Ralph, going back to the picture that you showed earlier, and so forth, you have with you, or here on the table, and you were showing me earlier, and I'd like to really get it on film, one of the aluminum pieces which you showed was a square and a triangle and a cone and all of these things. Would you hold that up and show it?
Utron? Yeah, this contains what's called the platonic solid. Platonic is merely a way of giving credit to Plato, who took the time to study and write about these shapes that nature has in her building blocks. In crystalline form, she has a definite way of building things. And this particular shape has a circle, which you can see from this angle. And if you turn it this way, you see the square. It's squaring the circle, if you will. It has these two definite geometric forms conversing. It also has the double tetrahedron, has a cone. It has, if you go into and away from this, you have a dodecahedron, etc., etc. You have many, many, many angles from this.
That's the basic.
This is basically many building blocks in one. And it's like nature goes from the infinite, this being the wider edge of a manifestation, call it a physical form of matter, or an earth, a planet, or whatever, out here to the finite, which would be the tip. And the rotations out here are relatively slow, like our earlier civilizations. It took 100 years to get from point A to point B, and now we can, up here where we're spinning faster and faster, getting ready to enter a new age of realization, of consciousness, if you will.
You showed me something that was in nature that was very similar to that.
It takes that 100 years can now be done in a day. Using what's that now? Oh, and this is the way nature has done it. If you notice, it's slightly asymmetrical. It's the same shape, but nature in our ideas is never actually perfect. But that's our idea, because nature is a perfect form. She's doing things exactly the way necessary to produce whatever she's building. So, but to us it seems just off center a little bit. But that's in relation to tachyon energy, the way energy flows. Water in a straight line is dead water coming down a hill, like a viaduct or an aqueduct. The water meandering down a hill is revitalizing itself every 2 feet. You can have polluted water and run it over gravel, sand, etc., and then 2 feet later be able to drink the water. That's the purification processes of nature by ebbing and flowing, or meandering, or staggering, or ratcheting things, the way it gets done. It's the pulsing of things. So, that's all, folks. That's all, folks. Yeah, I was going to say, it's getting late. Do you guys still have a room over there for the night?
Yes.
Oh, you do?
I hope so.
Yeah.
If we don't...
3 nights? We have 3 nights?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're over there.
All right. Now, do you think you can find your way by taking the truck?
No. He can.
Okay. Now, in the morning, how are we going to do that?
Well,
Okay, I'm going to turn this off. You want to say anything to anybody that...
I'd like my lovely bride to be honored for the lovely lady she is and the wonderful hospitality she's shown my new friends, and the patience and love and tolerance and care and fussing and everything that she's given to this splendid meeting this weekend.
Well, it's all my pleasure.
We all like
I've
to
just
thank that.
I've enjoyed being with all of you, and I hope that we can get together again real soon. I love having company, and especially Ralph's friends. I've heard so much about you already that I felt that I knew you even before you ever arrived. So,
I'm going to hear a lot more, too.
right.
Thank you, honey.
Well,
Yeah. Studying natural geometry has been circles or rings or things. So when we moved out here, they didn't have any signs, any road signs or anything. And we thought, well, let's put up a circle of some kind so they know how to find it. So we just put up those pie tins. And then one night we were driving home, and a big blue star, I guess, or something, came out of the sky and just kept going horizontally along this road. We were trying to catch it, but we couldn't. And we don't know whether it crashed or disappeared or what happened to it, but from that day on, the road became Blue Star Way. We decided to call it Blue Star so that people could find their way out here. Let's see. It took us... We started with the root cellar a year ago, February. And in between, we went on many vacations. We found it was easier to take a break once in a while than try to work all the way through. You just burn out, or you get disgusted or something. So we just would stop and go caving. We like to look for caves and things like that. So we just took off and be gone for 2 or 3 days camping or something like that. When we'd come back, we'd be full of new ideas to try. And we've got a lot of ideas that aren't incorporated in the house yet. We're not that far along. I might just go through a few of them. The walls are not finished yet. We left them in their block form. And if we're really not sure whether we're going to stay here or not, because it's getting a little congested for us. The power lines are in now and everything, and it's getting crowded. But if we're to stay here, the walls will be stuccoed in white, and then out about an inch or two from the wall will go in some transparent or translucent material similar to the prismatic material they use in overhead lights to disperse the lights, the little prisms. And behind that will go a highly intensified light source, such as a halogen quartz crystal that are in the new headlights. A very intensive light will illuminate behind this panel, and through a prism will break up into the color spectrum, all the colors of the rainbow. And with a dimmer, you can alternate the color of your walls and also the intensity. You can dim them down or brighten them up if you want. We like that idea, and I've already done it, and it's spectacular.
it changes your... I've come home from work in a real uptight mood and just turned the walls blue and sat down and had dinner, and gee, I just felt great. So it has some kind of effect. The center staircase, this spiral staircase, will also be out of a lucite material. The handrails will be clear plastic, and the foot pieces will be also 2-inch thick lucite. And the light source, like fiber optics, will illuminate through the staircase. And again, through the prism, you'll be able to regulate the color and the intensity of your light in the staircase. The center will have a fountain. We had a tree in there and it died this winter, so I just put a cap on it. There'll be a fountain in there, and we're going to go up about 3 feet and put a spillway, like a parabolic, and then up from that a homemade rockery where the water will cascade down, you know, a little waterfall. And that'll all be laced with fiber optics for different color effects. Underneath the water, there'll be tubing for propane gas so that we can light the top of the water if you want to sit in the evening and just enjoy a little warmth from the fire. It comes up through the water. And we're using air wells, incidentally. We're soon, if we're to stay here, going to be building our large air well to bring all our water out of the air. The cost of digging a well and the problems they're having in Arizona with water were something we really didn't want to get into. So we found the 1923 patents on air wells. They were made in well, I guess you saw them if you were at the meeting. They're made in the south of France and Africa and a few other places. We're very successful with them. And then since then they came up with popular mechanics with polycarbonates, and the polycarbons that the plastics will condense water about 5 times as fast. So we ran some experiments and found that we could take water out of the air here in a little ice chest at the rate of about 2 gallons a day, which if you expand that or multiply that out to a little larger, would be plenty for us. Even 100 gallons a day would be plenty of water for everything we needed. It's not very hard to do. So we're going to go ahead with that. Right now we're hauling most of our water in, but it really doesn't take much. We've learned conservation, we've cut back on things. We have a garden, and we have, we take regular showers and things. But we really don't consume that much water, and when we go in for a grocery run, we get our water at the same time, so it doesn't really affect us that bad. Let's see. Well, I could go on and on and on about the ideas. We've got 100 different ideas that are going to be incorporated in it. The greenhouse up on top will water itself, so when you go away on vacation. This is done with a little electronic sensors that are down near the roots of the plant. And when the plant becomes dry, it signals itself, it signals the water to be turned on, and that has nutrients in it, like hydroponics, in a sense. And you run the nutrients and water down to the plant, and when it has a sufficient amount, then it shuts itself off, which enables us to be free and go wherever we want to go. I guess I'll just start showing you around, and if you got any questions, there's just a lot of different ideas that I wanted to give you if you're building, that you just use your imagination, and most things are cheaper than you think. If you go out looking for them commercially, they're very expensive, but if you, we're garage sailors and swap meters and barterers, so we've gotten most of our materials that way. When you go into the root cellar, the first thing you'll see, the beams, were an old fence a guy was tearing down. He has a cow ranch in Chino, and he said, well, you'll haul it away, you can have it. And they were nice 30-year-old oak wood, 4x8 or 2x8s. So it was really good stuff. And they worked perfect for the roof of the food cellar, so it didn't cost us anything. The lumber that went into the top of the place, I did want to mention that again. There's a guy up in Parks. It's between Williams and Flagstaff. We were going to get his card out, and we never got it out. We couldn't find it. I can't think of his name, but if you go to Parks, everybody knows him. He's an independent lumber man, and he goes around and finds burns in different states where they have forest fires. And he hauls them down here for practically nothing. I mean, it doesn't cost him anything but the gas and time. And he passes the savings on to his customers. And the lumber that we have in here is really good lumber. It's number 1 Ponderosa, and it cost us 3 times cheaper than the lowest estimate we could find anywhere for lumber. We went all over the place. So it was quite a savings on the lumber. Beg pardon?
That's that lumber you're talking about?
Yeah. You'll see the beams on the inside. It's all rough cut, but the whole amount came just at $2,000 for the lumber. And then the block was about $1,500 for the block. And the septic, which is underneath here, it's down at the end of the driveway, was $1,200, something like that. And then cement and all the other essentials that went into it is still just under $5,000 is all we got into it. We've got a lot of time, and we come out and work late at night and stuff. So if you consider labor, there's quite a bit of time in it. But we enjoy doing it. We've never built a house before. We've never done anything like this, and we really learned a lot. And
yeah, they're very brave.
huh?
Very brave.
Well, we hadn't intended to build it at the beginning.
Well, we actually came out here. I had an idea a long time ago, about 25 years ago. We actually designed and flew to a limited extent what were to be flying homes, or a different form of transportation, where your car and your home would be one, and if you had to go out or around, you'd have smaller vehicles that you could come out of this with. But the power source was not in accord with the present system. We didn't use fossil fuels. We were using magnetic energy, basically. And we went to General Motors and really read the riot act, because they said we were attempting to overthrow the monetary system, that there'd be no jobs. Because we only had 2 moving parts in the vehicles, and there was little or no maintenance, hardly to speak of. And the fuel was magnetic, so in nature, so it was everywhere. And it would have been a good idea. And I think someday we'll probably have it. We're still working on it, but we started to build one here, and people are a little frightened of things they don't understand, so we had to shut down, and we had to build a house instead. But in the house...
If I have to do it, you have to do it. Bill. But the funny thing was, when we bought this, we weren't told that it was going to
We've done a lot of experiments with circles. Just coincidentally, we didn't really plan it that way. We found growing in a circle, we've got tons of rabbits around here, and all kinds of deer, and every night we're loaded with coon and skunk down here, but so far, none of them have touched our garden. We've had little square patches out, and they'd be devoured overnight, but, you know, they'd come in and eat all right down to the roots. I don't know if there's a coincidence there or what. So far, we haven't concluded our experiment, but we've watched the rabbits and everything just go right around or over the garden. They don't seem to bother anything. So, I don't know. Let's see, I should mention, I think it's important to mention, the reason we're facing north, outside of the fact was this is what we got when we bought the property, a north sloping hill. We found out in starting to calculate and think about it that in Arizona, at least for us, it was an advantage because we really don't like the hot summers. The cold winters we can bundle up and we don't mind those as much as we do the hot summers. So we said, well, at least if we're facing north, it'll be a little cooler. Well, we didn't know until we got about halfway through and started running some tests of what advantages we were incorporating. But all your cool air, because of the tilt of the planet, is on your north side. And with a hole in the center, the sun acts as a pump. It creates a vacuum and draws in the cool air. And all we have to do is open or crack one of the windows at the back side of the house and we create a draft around through the house. And it's just like an air conditioner. And the hotter it gets, the cooler the house becomes because the pump or the sun pumps that much faster or harder and it creates more of a draft. And it was spectacular. It was a bonus. And this kind of